Hello and welcome. This is Randy with Excel for Freelancers. And in this week, we're going to create an amazing automated purchase order application in which we're going to be able to generate parts needed automatically per vendor. It's going to be an amazing training. We're going to do it all from scratch. Every single formula, every format, every line of code is going to be written right here. So let's get started. Alright, thanks so much for joining us today. I've got an amazing training where I'm going to be creating an Excel automated purchase order right in front of your eyes. In fact, we are going to do everything as I type. So you're going to watch me create it. Not only am I going to create a purchase order, but I'm going to show you how you can generate a brand new purchase order with all the items required based on a minimum quantity. So the purchase orders can be generated automatically. We've got a really lot to cover, a really cool training today, very unique. So I can't wait to get started. Before I do that, I want to make sure that you're getting these trainings to you each and every week. I bring you on YouTube, so make sure you do subscribe with the button below and always click the notification icon bell. That'll be sure that you get those trainings sent to you right away as soon as they're released each and every Tuesday. And if you do like these videos and you like purchase orders, I'm going to be creating a comprehensive purchase order with tons and tons of features in our Excel for Freelancers mentorship program, where we're going to be creating an amazing application, and I'm going to show you how you can create your own applications. We're going to go from concept to cash and everything in between in this program. So if you like to use your Excel skills and create recurring and passive income, this is the program to do it. We're going to show you how to define, design, develop, and deploy your own Excel applications. So it's going to be a great training. If you like that, have a look. I'll include the links down below, or just myexcelmentor.com. It's going to be an amazing program, so get in now. That's really great. I think you'll love that program. Also, if you do like these applications, they're always free. You can download them using the links in the description below. Make sure you do, especially on these live trainings. Every once in a while, there'll be something small or some small issue that I might forget during the live training, but I'll make sure that any corrections are made in the downloaded version. It's absolutely free. Use the links down below and we'll get that full version right to you right away. If you like these, I've got actually 100 available in a 100 workbook pack. So if you don't want to download each and every one of them and you want 100 of my best workbooks, you can get that for just $37. All right, let's get started with the training. We got several sheets in this particular application. I just want to go over them with you. Our purchase order is going to be designed in this screen right here. Everything's going to be done in here. We have a list of purchase orders. All I've done is just started off with a table. That's going to move things along a little bit quicker. Just the basic things, all the components of the purchase order, including purchase order number, the date, a status, vendor, and then delivery address 1, 2, and 3. We also have a list of vendors. I've just pre-populated this just with some fake data just to help move things along. That's all, as well as the list of items. That's important. I just want to have some data. We're going to be using a formula to develop the quantity on hand, but I've got just set a minimum stock level of 5, just set some purchase quantities, just some basic data, and I've also just put in some criterion results here. That's going to help move things along as we develop the code. Also, purchase items, I've also put all the list of the items that we've purchased will go here, and I'll show you, explain the criterion, the filter, just setting a few things up beforehand so we can get these done. I know these trainings tend to be long, so I want to advance it as much as possible, at least set the basics. And then I have a list of sold items. Now, if you caught our training before a few weeks ago when we created an invoice would create something like a table like this. So I've pre-populated with some items that we have already sold, and they would go here. So we've got an invoice number, an invoice date, the item that was sold, the quantity sold, and the price. This is going to be important because we need to calculate how many items we have on hand, and basically the items that we have on hand are going to be all the purchased items minus all of these sold items on a per item basis. So that's important data that we need to start off on, and so I wanted to get us started. So let's get into this purchase order screen, and it's going to be a little bit similar than the invoice. So if you haven't caught that, we've got an invoice here. I've got some columns just setup just to make things go along quicker. Now the first column, what I want to do is just as we always do, I'm going to use reserve those for the admin. So we're going to color them gray. I want those to be for the admin because we're going to put in some formulas and things like that, and we're going to hide these columns. And when you create these applications, it's always good to use the first two columns for admin, and then you can just right click and hide them once you release your applications. You can also protect them. We're going to call this automated purchase orders. So I just want to give it a title to this, and we'll extend this. This will not be part of the purchase order. This will just be part of the top of the screen, and then I'll create the purchase order. So let's create that, and then merge and center that. I want to create that, and then our purchase order actually will start right here. I'll put that in column E. So this will be the title of the purchase order. And then what I want to do is just put in some formatting here. We'll make this one green, a little bit different. I'm going to format those cells and give it a fill and a fill effects. And then we'll just use a green, something very different, something very unique. So I'm going to fade down. And then what I'm going to do is the second one on this one, I'm just going to probably this column just C and perhaps I through J. I'm going to color those a little bit less of a color, a little bit lighter of a fade. So we're going to give that a fill effects, and we're going to go into the lighter green. So that's going to go from the medium green to the light green, and that we're going to give it a nice fade effect. The rest we can just color green. So then what we can do is we can go down to, so let's say row 31 or something like that. I'm going to try to keep everything on the screen for you this time so we don't go off, but at least for this fade. And then for this, so all we're going to do is give it this green, and then that'll give us the rounded out look that we want, just so we can encompass the purchase order in the screen. Now this purchase order is not going to be very long because I want to try to put everything in the screen for you. So we're going to have this larger font. Let's make this larger, and let's italicize this and give it a color. Also, I want to give it a nice color, maybe a green color, so it stands out, something like this, and make it bold so we can clearly see it. Okay, and I also want to do this. Maybe we'll give it a different font so we can see what we like perhaps let's go with Adobe rounded bold. That looks good. And give this a color. I want to give it a font just so we can know what we're working on here, and italicize. And I also want to put in some icons. So our purchase order is going to be basically made up of, I want a PO number in G, so we'll do PO number and then a colon here, and then I also want a PO date, purchase order date here, and then I also want status. So status is important because we have to know if it's open or closed. I'm going to right justify these, and then I'm going to left justify this. This is where it's going to go in. The date should be formatted as a date, so let's go ahead and put that as a short date. Put in temporarily a 1 here, 120, and then the status will just put in open. Okay, so basically at that point what I want to do is I'm going to put in the company name here and a company logo. So let's see, we have Fredder's T-Shirts Incorporated, and then we just put in a street. This is gonna be the top of the, okay, we'll just put in any town, California, USA. Okay, so that's the top of our purchase order. Next up, what I want to do is put a divider in here and then have it very different. So maybe a color like let's say use this dark green, and then a white font on this so it stands out, and then bold. So here I'm going to put in the vendor, and then let's put those in capital so it stands out, vendor, and then maybe delivery address. So we want that. We have to know the delivery address. Okay, delivery address and vendor, we can italicize those. And next up, so the vendor would go here. So I'm going to put in a vendor name here, and then vendor address 1 and vendor address 2 here. And then skipping a line, probably on 10, we're going to do the same thing. So let's just copy and paste this because I want a divider probably on 10. And then what I want to do is I'm going to put in the item here. Description, I want the description of the part. The quantity here. And the price. And then the total. So we're going to center that also. Okay, good. So it's going to be coming along fine. And of course, we're going to get rid of the grid lines soon because we don't want them to look. And then I'm going to drop down in probably about, say, row 25. Let's bring this up just for a moment. In 25, let's say right about 25 here, we're going to put our totals here, and that's going to go for about 3 rows. So let's color those white for now. and just so we can get an idea. And then I'm going to put in right here, I'm going to put in the same color font. I think I want a little bit lighter of a green here, but that's okay. So let's put in that color. Let's drop this back down again and scroll down, and I'm going to change this color. I like a little bit lighter here. Okay, so we're going to put a background color of this looks better, and then I want to put here, let's put in the PO, we'll change that to white, of course, PO subtotal. Okay, and here would be the tax, perhaps let's say 10%. Just put in any tax so we can have a tax, and here the order total. Okay, great. So we have all those. Let's add a colon here so we're consistent. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make these white, bold, and right justify. So white, bold, and right justify there. So now we have this, and I'm going to merge and center this here because I want a footer message here. So merge and center left and upper. So we can put in like, please deliver between 12, let's say, and 5 p.m. just so we can get a nice footer message. The purchase orders should have a footer message. All right, good. It's starting to come together now. Let's add a border around this. I'll move it up back and forth so we can see. I'm going to add a border around this. So I'm going to format those cells and put a border around here. So go into the border, and I'll use a green color. Sorry, it's off the screen here. Let's drag it up here. I'll probably use, let's say, this same dark theme and then give it an outline all the way around it. And then I'm going to add in some dotted lines here. So here, format the cells here, and I'll bring this up. What I'll do is I'll just add a little bit of a lighter dotted line here, just so we can see. That's a bit too light. And that way it will give us a nice differentiate between our order so we can see. Good. All right. And then another dotted line here. I'm going to format this cell. Let's highlight those, format the cells. And then we're going to use the same color border all the way around and inside. And then I'm just going to make this a dotted line. You can't, it's hard to see, but I think so. The left, so that basically is going to say, okay, the left one for, so that we can, there, now it's starting to come together, our purchase orders. We can go into the view and remove the guidelines to make it look a little bit better. Nice, it's starting to come together now, our purchase orders. All right, let's put in some buttons, and also I'm going to have this as the item row, and I also want a database row. I want to know the row where it's saved to. What is the database row? Well, that's going to be in the purchase, in the sold, in the purchased items here. It's going to be this row right here, 3, 4, because I need to know where it is. So we're going to store that right here. And the item row is going to be a formula. We need to know what row the item is on. Like, for example, this item would be on 3 or 4. I need to know because I need to pull in the information. I need to pull the description, the quantity, and the sales price. So the row is very important. So we're going to put that row with a formula here. Let's add in some pictures here. That is going to help us out. And we're going to insert pictures. And I've got some pictures saved already. That's going to help us out. And great. So we can add it up. I'll drop this down, and then we're going to set the sizes automatically and then readjust them accordingly. 0.22. All right, great. So now we have our buttons. And what I want to do is I also want to add in some buttons. So let's add in some shapes. We'll make it a square shape and use the same theme color. Let's say we have here, let's do 0.34 and then perhaps maybe 1.4. That's good, 1.4. Okay, I want to give it a theme color, so we can do that. Let's grab it this theme color, and I'm going to duplicate that. Maybe I think I want about 5 buttons. So Control D, Control D, Control D, D, and D. Okay, so we've got our 5 buttons, but I want to move these icons on top, right? Because we just created, so whatever's we created last is going to be on top. So I'm going to take all of these icons here, format, and I'm going to bring them to the front. That's going to place them on top of these, which is where I want. So, all right, great. So we have our icon here. This is going to be our automated purchase orders. Let's increase this a little bit. And I just want to make sure everything's on the screen for you. I don't want to go below this, so that's why we're going to do it. All right, we have our, let's get out of this, the selection tool, and increase this. That's going to be our purchase order. I want an icon for our company, so we're going to put that here. and that looks nice, but I want to change the color of that. I want to look more to our theme, so let's grab this green here. There we go. Now it's looking nice. So we've got automated purchase orders. We can shrink this down a little bit, but before we do, let's start building our buttons now. So what kind of buttons do I want? I'm going to bring this back down to, we'll adjust that now. I want to bring that back down to 0.34 because I increased. Okay, so what kind of buttons do we want? We want to add new, that's for sure. So I'm going to type in add new PO. What else do I want? I want to cancel new PO, cancel new when we're in the new mode, and we don't want to be in the new mode. We want to cancel the new. So I'll show you how that works. I'm going to generate a PO. Let's bring this down so you can see it. I want to generate one. What do you mean generate? Generate. That means if I need items based on the minimum quantity, we're going to generate it automatically. It's going to be really cool. So it's going to create items create a PO automatically in just one click. I want to print PO. That's important. And I also want to save or update. That's important. And what else do I want? I want, that's it. All right, we're good to go. So just those 5 buttons. And let's now hold those down. And what I'm going to do is I want the icon on the left, print. Let's change this to print. Print. And so I'm going to hold the control, highlight all the buttons, and I'm going to format them all together. So we're going to right justify them here under the right justify, because I want to put that icon on the left, and we won't line them up just yet. So let's build out our buttons now. And I'm going to copy this, Control D, because that's the background I'm going to use, and I'm going to size this accordingly. This is the background I want on it, because that's going to be concerning our. And so that I got the size right, and then we can just Control D, duplicate this 2, 3, 4 times, add new PO. I'm going to use this same background icon, cancel, and then we're going to do generate. Print will have its own one, so we don't need that. Print, this can be centered because it's just a small text. All right, great. So we want the printer here. Going to bring that up. That looks okay for now. And what I want to do is I want to save or update. So I'm going to use this for the save or update, this icon here for the save update. And I'm going to bring that forward. Actually, I'm going to bring them all forward because I want them all on top. So I'm going to hold down the control. We have 2 of these. We don't need that. Format, align, and then format, bring to the front. And we don't need 2 of these. I'll remove this one. Okay, so this is going to go for generate purchase orders. I want that to generate it, and I want to cancel new just in case we're getting out of the cancel screen. So we're going to put that here, and then I want to add this under the add new. So all right, good. Now we've got our buttons. So let's group them. Now we're going to hold down the selection, group and name. It's always important to group and name. Format, align to the middle. And then I'm going to group them, and then I'm going to name it. So this is going to be called save button. Okay, enter, and then add new. Same thing here. We're going to, let's say, align the middle. Good, that's going to give it, and group it, and then we're going to call this add new button. And cancel new, same thing. We can just, actually that's kind of lined up already. Group it, cancel new button. These are important. We need to show the cancel new. The cancel new and the add new are going to be in the same location. So we're going to focus on that, and I'll show you that. This one, align the middle and then group it, and then just call this generate PO button. All right, and the last one, print PO button. There we go. Then we've created all of our buttons. Group it, print buttons. Fine. Okay, good. So let's bring these up to the top now, get out of the selection. What I want to do is I want to save and the update right here. That's going to be the first. Add new will be below it. Then cancel new and add new are going to be in the same location. So only one of those is going to show at a single time, so not both. So we can put those generate and then print. All right, I like that. I like the locations of them. Let's do our selection tool and line them up. We're going to group them. We're going to highlight them all, select them all actually, format, align the left, and then of course I want to distribute vertically, distribute vertically, perfect. Okay, cancel new, I want these right on top of each other because they're only going to show at the same time. So we're going to slide that over, put those right on top of each other, just like that. Cancel new, add new are going to be on the same. And I'm going to move this back. We're going to use this second, so send to back. We're only going to show one of those at the same time. All right, it's looking really good now. we can get out of the selection mode and then put some borders around this. Almost done with our formatting here. That's going to look really good. And we're going to set the print area. This is going to be our print area right here. So we can do that now. Might as well. Under the page layout and then print area and then set the print area. That's going to be our print area. Let's take a look in the preview and just see how that would look. All right, that looks nice. It's going to print all in nice, so we're good to go on that. Now we can start to add in some named ranges. That's the second point. We've got all our buttons, and we also want to add in some information here. So perhaps in vendor, I want to do vendor row. I need to know the row of the vendor. I also need to know whether it's the row of the PO. What row is this? That's the database row, right? The purchase, remember we have purchase items, purchase order list. It's going to be a list, so I need to know what row it's on here. And I'll show you the formula for that in a moment, but we need to track that. I need to know if it's a new PO or not. And I also need to know if it's loading, PO load. We need to know the difference between when it's loading from saved. When we make a change here, when we enter 2 here, I want the second purchase order to load. When we enter 3 here, I want to enter. So basically, based on the change, I want that purchase order to load. All right, so next up, what I also want to know the next PO number, So we need to know all that information. Let's highlight that and color that distinctively so that we can differentiate between that and everything else. Great. All right, so now it's time to add in our named ranges. Let's take a look at this. What kind of named ranges do we have? Well, the first thing is we need a PO number. That's important. So let's say we have POs here. I need a named range, a dynamic named range for here. So let's create that under the formulas name manager. Notice we only have the print order that we set. New, let's just call this PO number. And then I want a dynamic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this and I'm going to add offset to it. So Control C, and then I'm going to click right here and then put an offset PO list. I want to start it all in the header row, but we don't want to include the header row. That's just in case there's no data. So it's going to be comma and then one row down it's going to start comma, comma, count A. What do I want to count? I want to count all the range from PO, let's say, to A, and then perhaps 999 or something. 999 or something like that, something large like that. Okay, then one column down, one row down, minus one row down, comma 1. Let's tab out and tab back in and make sure that encompasses our data with the dancing ants. Perfect. You see, it just covers that. Okay, good. So we have the PO number. What else do we need? I need to know the vendor names. Obviously, so let's click on the vendors and get some named ranges. I'm going to do the same thing with the vendor name. So formulas, name manager, and create a new, and we'll call this vendor name. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to copy this right here, just as it is, and then I'm going to put in offset, starting at A2 and then comma 1 means one row down, comma, comma, count A. I want to count all the text in this range. What range? Let's say V8999 and the minus 1. Why? Because we're including the header row, but we don't want that. That's just in case there's no data. Comma 1, tab out, tab in, make sure it encompasses all the data. To check it, click OK. Great, so now we have purchase order and vendor name. What else do we need? Well, I need the items purchased and the items sold. I need that count number. So let's do that right now. In the items purchased, we don't have anything, but let's just say we have some quantity one, right? Let's just say we have some data. Let's encompass that and add a named range, and then we'll delete the data. Formulas, name manager, and let's call this items purchased. New items purchased, and then I want the purchased items. Basically, we're going to do the same thing using offset. So copy that. As we repeat it, you'll learn it very, very easy. Offset, and then again, we're going to bring it here, one down, comma, comma, count A, paste it in, and then we will use a large range here, 999 minus 1, comma 1. Okay, first column. Look at that. Okay, now we have items purchased. Perfect. Click OK. And now the last one, we also need items sold. I want to know all the items sold, so that's going to be here. So again, one more formula, name manager, new, and this time we'll call this items sold. Items sold. And what's that going to encompass? Again, copy this, copy the main thing. It makes it a little quicker. Add in the offset, offset. All right, and then also one row down. We only have a few. We don't have too many. comma 1, count, comma, count A, paste it in, add in your large range here, -1, comma 1. Okay, tab it over, make sure it includes all the data. Good, so now we have this. Let's take a look at our name ranges. We have items purchased, items sold, PO number, print area, and vendor name. Okay, we also need the item names. One more. Let's go in there. I want to know a list of item name, and that would be here, item name. So we can add that in. That's our last one. New, and then we'll call this item name. That's fine, name as it is. Again, we're going to copy this. I also want a dynamic named range. Offset items, and then clear this out. Comma 1, comma, count A. You're getting it now. Hang of it. 999. All right, so this is the last one. -1, comma 1. Okay, tab out, tab in. Perfect. Okay, good. So let's go over this. We have item names. We have all of our dynamic names for all the items that we've purchased, even though there's no data yet. All the items that we've sold. The purchase order numbers, we need that, and we have the vendor names. Great. So we've got everything we need. We can start adding in some formulas now. So let's go the next purchase order. What we have, assuming let's say we have the first 3 used, I want the next one to be 4. So we can use a formula and max that. We always want to wrap that in if error equals if error. If there's an error, I want the max of what? The PO numbers. But I don't just want the max of that. I want to add 1 because I want the next one, so +1. But what if it's an error? Well, if it's an error, I just want it to revert to the first one, which would be 1. Okay, great. So it's 4 now. Let's left justify these. Drop that down. Go to home and left. So what if it is an error? What if there are no PO? Then I want it to revert to 1, which is what we want now. So deleting those, it's going to revert back to 1. Perfect. That's what I want. I'm going to set this to 1. It's already set. Very good. Okay, so we've got that already set up. Let's say I want to know the vendor row, and I want a vendor drop-down list here. I want to create a vendor name, so I want a drop-down list. As you remember, in the formulas, we have already a vendor names called vendor names. So if we edit that, just copy and paste it. It's a good way to get it exactly right. I want to drop down list of vendors right here. So we can do that into the data and data validation. I want a list. Adding the list would be equal to vendor names. Paste that in. That is a list of all of our vendors. That's what I want. When I select a vendor, I want the addresses to show up here for the vendor. But I also want to know the row of this vendor. How do we know the row? We can use match. Now let's take a look. I want the row. So if we select Acme, our first match is going to return 1, but I don't want 1, I want 3. So to do that, we just need to add 2, and of course we're going to wrap it in if error just in case it's nothing there. So equals if error match. What are we matching? We're going to look up, of course, right here under E7. Then we're going to comma. What are we matching? The vendor name is the array we're going to be looking up. I want an exact match, so that's 0. And then if there's an error, we're going to, of course, use it in double space, so we want nothing. All right, that's going to get us 1, but we still need to add in 2, right? Because I want the third row. So +2 is going to get us row 3. That's what I want. I also want the purchase order row. Again, same thing. I want to know the purchase order. If we have, well, let's say 1 here, that means I want to make sure we show row 3. So we can do that again here. Equals if error, same type of formula. Match. What are we matching? In this case, we're going to look up the PO here. We're going to use the lookup array of PO numbers here. We want an exact match, would be 0. And then if there's no match, we're just going to, or an error, just going to use double quotes. Again, adding row 2 because I don't want just the match. I want to add it. I want to get the 3. So +2 is going to get us 3. New PO is going to be a true or false, and the PO load is going to be a true or false also. So we can set that up as well. That's it. That's all we have. We're just about ready to start our coding. Let's save our work. Great. So we've got our automated purchase orders here. We're looking really good. And I'm just going to start with the code now. Let's take a look at everything we have, everything just set. All right, now we're ready to get into the VBA code. I got a lot to show you. It's really, really cool. So the first thing what I want to do is when I make a change to this, I want both the address to show up here. What I want to show the billing address 1 and the billing address 2 when I make a change to those vendor names. So let's add that in right now, and that's going to be on the sheet through our developers, Visual Basic. You can use Alt F11. Of course, if you don't have the developers tab open, you can locate that into the options and just click on the customize ribbon here, and you can find it right here. So that'll get us to also the shortcut Alt F11. All right, we've got no code, no modules here. We can create that very soon. Purchase orders is the sheet we're going to be focusing on, and what I want to do is I want to create an event based on the worksheet, and not necessarily selection change in this case, but when we actually make a change, actually making a change to the worksheet, right? Because what is the change and what is the cell that we're making the change to? We're going to check two things. We want to make sure if the user has made a change to E7, and we want to make sure that the value of E7 does not equal empty. So we can do that right now with just a little bit of code. So if not, and we can change this, that's automated text based on AutoHotkey. That's a free software I use. So when you see me typing in so fast, I use software called AutoHotkey to help me. It's a free software. You can Google that. And there's another condition, range E7 must not be blank. E7.value must not be blank. So as long as those two conditions are met, we want something to happen. I wanted to mention the vendor row as long. I need to know that vendor row. And the vendor row is located in B2, right? Let's double check that. Let's bring this down. We don't need that so high. Vendor row is located in B2. So vendor row equals dot range B2 value. That's the vendor row. Now that we have the vendor row, assuming that the vendor row, if the vendor row equals 0, then exit sum. Okay, and we can't have that. All right, next up, now that we're assuming that we do have a vendor row, we can set our addresses. What do I want to do? Basically, what I want to do is I want to set E8 and E9 pretty much equal to whatever's the row here, B and C. So we can do that with the following lines of code. Range, let's look back on here so we know what we're doing. Range E7, E8, and E9. That's what we're focused on. E8 dot value equals sheet 4. Why sheet 4? Sheet 4 is our vendors. Dot range B and the vendor row dot value is the address 1. Okay, great. So now all we need is the address 2. We can just copy and paste this and make a few small changes, and we're done. That's going to change to E9, and this is going to change to C. So now when we change it, assuming that there is, and this of course is address 2, now when we change it or just double click on it, get rid of that dot. We don't need that. That's only for wish sheet, and reset the code. Okay, so now when we double click on it, the address is going to appear here. Perfect. That's just what I want. All right, great. So now we have automated. Now we can put in whatever delivery address we want, but I want the delivery address to be actually in one cell. So let's merge and center this, merge and center, and holding down the control. So what I'm going to do is drop this down, go into the home, merge and center, and then left justify it. Now I want the delivery address to be Fredder's Shirt Company, 12345 Main Street, Anytown. Okay, so you can pretty much get a whatever delivery address you want. That's going to also be saved. Next up, what I want is the item list. I want a drop down list of items. Remember, we have a data validation. Remember, in the formulas, we have our named range here, I should say, called item names. That's just what I want to do for here. So let's do that. Add in the data validation here. Data validation, clicking on that, we're going to use a list, right? We want the item names equals item underscore name. Click OK. All right, so now we have a list of item names. That's great. That's what I want. But I also want to know what row each one is on. And I'm going to put a formula down here to determine what row is this. For example, the perfect t-shirts, when we look in the items, we notice that is row 5. Again, we want to base the name, add to, use a match. I'll explain that in just a second. So equals, always if error, I always want to add that if error, wrap that in, match, again, what are we matching? We're going to match whatever is in D11, and we're going to match it with the item name, and then we want an exact match, again, but we don't want the row, we want to add to, just like we do because we want the row number, comma, and if it's an error, I want to make sure it's double quotes. That's going to get us the row number, and we can bring that out either way. We can hide this, of course, if you want to, using the same font colors, the same background. And I'm going to bring this down and copy this all the way down right here. That's what I want. All right, great. So it's empty. It works perfect. Anytime we add a G, it's going to show the row. Excellent. Okay, good. That's what I want. Now we're getting together. We've got the formulas here. We're looking really good. Next up, let's continue with some code. What do I want to do? I want to be able to save this. So I also, when I add this in, when I add it, I want to add the description, the quantity, and the price. And that's on change of anything in D, assuming that there is a value. So let's add that into the code since we're working on the on sheet code on the sheet, meaning when a user makes a change on the sheet, we want something to happen. Assuming that there is a value here, what do I want to do? I want to add then the description, the quantity, and the price. And I want to add that in from right here, the description, the purchase quantity, and the sales price from our item list. So we can do that with just a little bit of code. So let's bring that through right now and continue on with our code. So let's put this on change of item, but no, not a blank value. Okay, that's right. So if not, what do we, it's D11. What is it? We're going to make a change, any change between D11 and D24. That's what we're going to focus on now. So any change between D11 and D24. So any change there, that's what I want to focus on. And range B5 is false. I also want to make sure it's not on load dot value. Why is that? Because here's why. I want to bring in the description, quantity, and price from the items, right? But what if we're loading a purchase order? In that case, what I want to bring is I want to bring in the item, the description, the quantity, and the price, or just the description, quantity, and price from what it was purchased, from the purchase order. Remember, because the quantity is going to be different, the price is could be different too. So basically what that means is when we're loading a purchase order, something that we saved previously, we want to load it from whatever's been purchased, whatever was saved. However, it's a new purchase order, or we want to add on to the purchase order, then we want to bring it in from the saved item list. So there's two different ways we can load it. So we need to differentiate between those two. So the way to do that is to use whether it's loading or not, and that's located in B5. If it's loading, meaning when we change the purchase order and we load the previously saved purchase order, this is going to go to true, and then it's going to go back to false. So we want to make sure this is false before we add in the description, quantity, and the price from our item list here. So to do that, we just run a quick check, and that quick check is to make sure the B5 value is equal to false. Assuming it's false, we can continue on with the code. Then what do we want to do? Then what I want to do is I want to make sure that C and value is not empty, right? If C, I can't add the description, the quantity, price if I don't know the row. So we want to make sure that this is not empty. So we can do that with the following line of code. If range C and the target dot row dot value does not equal empty, then I can do something. Then what do I want to do? Then I want to add in the information. So we're going to set the item row. The item, we got to dimension the item row up here. Let's do that. Dimension, we can do it after this, because we're not dimension item row as long. Okay, that's important. The item row, of course, what does it equal? It's equal to C and whatever's in here. C and the target row equals C and the target item row, right? We're going to dimension this item row 5 or 4, whatever it is. I want to dimension it C in the target row. So now that we have the item row, we can load the details that are necessary for that. What are those details? Well, they're basically the description, the quantity, and price. So we can do that with this line of code. Okay, so let's take a look at this. What do we want? Let's take a look. What I want is E through G equal to, let's go into the items, basically B through D. B through D. So let's write that right now. Range on the purchase order, E through G. What is the row? It's the target row. So let's write that. E and the target dot row. And what is it? All the way through colon G and the target dot row dot value equals, what does it equal? Sheet 5 dot range. What is it in there? B and the item row, we set the item row already, and the G all the way through, what is it? Let's take a look at that just so we know we're saying all the way through D. Okay, so and colon D and the item row. Dot value. Okay, that would be, what was it? Description, item description, quantity, price. Okay, so bring in all of that. Let's test that out. It's very easy to test out, just to double check it. All we need to do is double click on here, and all right, our quantity and shirt brought in. Let's bring this to the center, and it looks a little bit better. And we got to give it our total. We've got to make sure that's in. So what's our total? It's going to be equal. Make sure that if, I want to make sure that we at least have a price there, because we can't have a price or a quantity. We need both. If there's no price, then equals blank, then of course blank. Otherwise, multiply this times this quantity, right? The price times the quantity. Perfect. Okay, 336, and let's format that. Bring it down. I'm going to copy that formula, bring it all the way down here, and then bring that formula. Perfect, because it's blank unless we select item. Let's double click here. Perfect. Okay, now just let's format these. Format all of these as currency. So drop that down, and we're going to format those as currency. All right, great. So now we've got that. Everything's formatted just nice. Perfect. Our purchase order is coming together very, very well. So now we understand. Let's just try this on another item, make sure it works. Okay, it's working really great. That's just the way I like. Good. Now we're ready to create a macro that's going to actually save it. Okay. So let's do that right now. Let's create a macro that's going to actually save this work order. I want to save it to the database. Save the work that we've been doing right now. And we're going to go back into the VBA and open this up, and we're done with this. Let's clean this up a little bit. For now, we're gonna add one more macro on this in a little bit later on when we do macros. So let's just write some ideas. On change of PO, load PO. Okay, so that's going to be here later. So but we haven't written that macro yet. When we change this, we want to load the previous work orders. So when we change this, we want to load the previous purchase order. So that's important. We'll get to that in a moment. But let's start off with at least saving, because we can't load unless we actually save something first. So create a module. Let's bring this back up, expand this a little bit. We're going to write some more code now. And we're going to create a macro called insert module, and then I'll just create a little module. We'll call this PO macros. In the properties here, we're going to give it a name, call it PO macros. And the first one we're going to write is we're going to call this save and update. We're going to use the same macro, so sub, and then PO save update. What do I want for this? Well, I'm going to dimension a lot of rows. I want to make sure that we dimension, let's move this over a little bit, dimension the PO row. I need to know the row as long. We need to know that. I also need to know the PO item row. Going to make sure we're going to track the item row as long. And I also need to know the last item row. If we run through the items, last item row as long. And of course the item row. We're going to be going through the items because I need to save going through all the items because it's going to be different, right? What we're going to be doing is we're going to be saving this information here and this information to our PO list here, vendor, delivery address. I'm going to save all that. And then our items themselves, all this information, including the item, the description, quantity, price, that's going to be saved in our purchase order items here. All of that here. So we need that. So we're going to have to go through those. So to do that, we need to track each of those rows. So we mention them all as long. With sheet 1, that's the sheet we're focusing on. What do we want to do? First of all, we need to determine if new or existing PO. That's the first thing we want to do. So we can use that through B4. B4 is going to track our whether it's new or existing using his. So we can determine that if it's true. If dot range B4 dot value equals true, then it's a new. Else existing. PO and if. So that's our if and end if. So we're going to do just a few things based on whether it's new or whether it's existing. Okay, so if it's new, what do I want to do? Well, I want to set the PO row. What is it going to be equal to? The first available row. I need to know where's the purchase order row. It's going to be in this case 4, but I'm going to remove this. So in this case, it's going to be 3. So we want to know the first available row. So we can do that with this. The PO row equals, of course, it's our PO list sheet H2 dot range A, and let's just use large O, 9999, end XL up dot row plus 1, right? I don't want the last row of the value. I want the first available row, which is the last row of the value plus 1. First available row. Okay, so that's if it's row, but also what I want to do, I want to add the PO number because it's a brand new one. So the dot range, where's our purchase order numbers going? Remember, our next available purchase order is located right here. So in that case, I want to take this and I want to put it right here just to make sure it's correct. So H2, we're going to add this on new, but I want to make sure to add it here as well. So H1 is going to be equal to whatever's in B6. So we can write that line of code dot range H1 dot H2, actually, I think it is, value equals B6 dot range B6. So we're going to write that down as the next purchase order number, next PO number. Okay, so we've got that set up. What else do we want to do? That's it. That's all I really want to do. If it's a new one, there's other things that we can do. We can add in the purchase order number on A, so we probably should do that too. One more thing. So sheet 2 dot range A, and what is it? The PO row. Now that we've defined the PO row, dot value equals, I want to put also that in H2 dot range H2. So I want to put the purchase order number, but only for new one, dot value PO number. What is that? Well, what that is I want to only for new ones because it's already existing. I want to take that purchase order, I want to put it right here, right here, here. Put that in column A. That's only for new ones because the existing ones it's not going to change. So the date theoretically could change and everything else could change. So just at least put the purchase order number. Okay, so that's all what we're going to do if it's new. But what if it's existing? Well, the PO row, if it's existing, well, that's located in B3 equals dot range B3 dot value. That's the purchase. So now we've differentiated between new and existing, but we've got the PO row. Regardless, the PO row is going to be whether it's new or existing. So the rest of the code is going to be running regardless if it's new or existing. So I want to update sheet 2. That's our PO list. Sheet 2 dot range. What do I want to do? Well, B is the first column that we have in it, and the PO row dot value equals what it's going to equal, the date. So that's in dot range. Date's located in H3. That would be the PO date. Correct? Let's just double check that, make sure that we're on. Okay, so we want to add the PO date. I also want to add, which is in H3, I also want to add the status, and I want to add the vendor, and then I want to add the delivery address. So we want to add all that information in, bringing all that in right here. Again, PO date, status, vendor, and then delivery address 1 through 3. We can do that with the following lines of code. We can at least just copy that. It's going to be a little bit easier, a little bit faster. So we're going to go B, C, D, E, F, and G. So let's add that in C, D, E, F, and G. Okay, so now we've got that in. So let's just add in the details. So the status, we need to know the PO status, the vendor, also the delivery address 1, and we need to know the delivery address 2 and 3. 2 and 3. Okay, so now that we've defined that, we just need to set where they're coming from. The status is located in H4. The vendor is located in E7. We've defined that already. And also the delivery address F is in F7, 8, and 9, I believe. Let's take a look at that. F7, F8, and F9. Add in that information here. So good, now we're getting at F7, F8, and F9. Okay, so we've got all that information in. Now we've saved all of it. So what else do I need to do now? Well, I need to add in the row. Remember, we have all this information now filled out, but I need to add in the purchase order items, and I need to add them here. The PO, the item description, quantity, price, row. So I need to add in all this information right here. So we can do that with the following lines of code. Let's just write it up in a comment here. So we're going to add or update PO items, because this could be an update too. So we have to make sure we differentiate between whether it's a new item or an existing item. So the first thing we want to do is determine the last item row, because we're going to be looping through the items. So I need to know the last item row. Of course, it's going to be anywhere from B24 on up. So let's get that last item for now. So we're just going to say the last item row equals dot range D24 dot end XLF dot end XLF dot row. Okay, that's going to get us our last item row. Next up, what do I want to do? I want to check if the last, just want to check item row is less than 11, just in case, then go to no items. Okay, and then we'll put down here no items, just so we can skip everything else in case there's no items. Okay, but assuming that there is, that we can continue on with our code. Now we can run a loop for item row. It's going to start at 11, always equals 11 to last item row. So we're going to start a loop, next item row, close our loop. Always good to close and open and close at the same time. If we're going to run an if statement, I need to know if it's an existing or new. The way we tell is the database row. If it doesn't have a database row, what is the database row? That's located here. It would be this row, row 3, 4, 5, whatever it is. So if it doesn't have a row, that means it's a new item. We need to create a new row. If it does, we can use the existing row. So we can just use an if-then statement to determine that. If dot range I, remember I is the column that we just focused on, and what? And the item row dot value equals, does not equal, I guess, does not equal empty, then it's an existing row. Else it is a new row. And okay, so now we can write some code based on whether it's a new row or an existing row. So the PO item row equals, in this case, if it's existing, we know the row. It's going to be in I. It's going to be right here. So we know it's going to be right here if it's existing. What if it's new? Let's just put in existing, just in case. What if it is new? Well, then the PO row is something different. What is it going to be? The first available row. First available row on our what sheet? That's going to be sheet 3 right here. Purchased items is going to be here, our first available row based on whatever A is. So we need to find the first available row and add that in here. So we can do that with just a little bit of code. So we can use end-xup. So in this case, PO item row equals sheet 3 dot range A, and then we'll just use a large column 999 dot end XLF dot row plus 1. That's the first available item row. What else do I want to do if it's a new one? If it's a new one, I also want to add on a little bit more information, something that I wouldn't do if it's an existing item. What do I want to do just one time, not every time? In this case, I want to add in the purchase order number, item description, quantity, price. Those could all change, but the PO row and the row, these 3 items, 1, 2, 3, I only want to do when we enter the new row. So that's only for one time new row. So we can do that right here. So the first thing I want to do is add in the PO number. So sheet 3 dot range A and the PO item row dot value equals what? Equals the PO number. So I want to make sure to put in that. Where is the PO number? That is located in H2 dot range H2. That's the PO number. That's important. PO number. Okay, what else do I want to add in? I also want to add in those 2 other things that I mentioned to you. So we can copy this and then add some additional information here using a different column. And then the next column would be G. What's in G? Why G? Again, let's just show that to you real quick. G, of course, is going to be our row, and then F was going to be our purchase order row. So we'll add in both F and G here. F and G, PO row, and then row. Our PO row, what is that? It's going to be this. Our row 11, 12, 13. That's our PO row. What is another thing that I want to add? I want to know the row. I want to know the row here, so we can just use a formula for that. So F and G are the 2 things that we need to enter. So let's do that. So F is equal to what? F is equal to the item row, because I want to know that, the item row. And then G is the other thing that we need to add in. G, and that's going to be just a formula, as I mentioned to you before, just so we can keep track of the database row. So that's going to be quotation marks equals row. That's going to keep track of our row, and I'll show you why shortly. That would be the database row, and this is going to be the PO row. PO row. We need to keep track of both of those. All right, great. So we've done that. Now the rest of the things that we're going to be doing regardless of it's a new item or an existing item. So we can add in all the additional information. And what is that basically? What do I want to do? I want to basically say item, description, quantity, and price. These four, B through E equals, in this case, D through G. So that's all. I just want to write one line of code that says all of that. So we can do that right here. So sheet3.range B and PO item row and colon all the way through what? Through E again, and the PO item row and PO item row dot value equals what from our PO dot range, again, like I mentioned to you, D through G. D, and this time it's going to be the item row, item row and colon G and the item row. So that's going to basically take all the information from our purchase order and bring it over into, and that would be, what is it? The item, description, quantity, price. Okay, great. Let's just take a look at that. That looks right. Okay, so we've got that. We've added, that's it. That is all we need to do to save it. And then we just need to update the button sets because it's no longer a new purchase order. So we need to make sure the update, and that's just basically 2 buttons. Also, I want to set B4 to false dot range. B4, it's no longer a new purchase order. It's now an existing. So B4 dot value equals false. Existing purchase order. And what do I want to do? Just update the button sets. So what button sets do I want to do? Let's just look those over real quick. We're going to go in and view our shapes. So we have the add new. I want to make sure that is displayed, and the cancel new is, so cancel new button should be hidden, and we want to make sure we display the add new button. So those are the 2 buttons that we're going to be focused on. So let's just write some code for that. Dot shapes cancel new button dot visible equals MSO false, and then dot shapes add new button dot visible equals MSO true. Okay, there we go. That's it. That's all we have to do. And with, we'll run it. Obviously we're going to save the work we did, and then we're going to run our code, test it out, and fix any bugs that we might have. So that's going to be for save and new. Let's just purchase. I don't want to clear this data out here because that's just temporary. Purchase order. Okay, so let's take this, save. That's the button, the macro we just created. We only have one macro, PO save update. Okay, so save our work again, and then let's just run the code, check for any errors. Variable not defined, PO row. That should be PO, remember, not PO row. So let's fix that. Okay, PO row, just get rid of that. I'll fix that. Okay, so we don't need that, not POW row. Okay, so now that we fixed that, run the code. Okay, no errors. Perfect. All right, now we've saved it. Let's take a look at our PO list. Our information is here, just the way we want it. That's covered. What about our purchased items? Our 2 items are here, the quantity, the row is here, the PO row. Excellent. Now we're in business. So we've now saved our purchase order. Good. So what do I want to do next? Well, I want to make sure that we're going to load it. So when I put in 1 here, or whatever purchase order, I want to load all the information. So that's the work order we're going to write. Okay, great. Actually, we need to put the database row in here too. I want to make sure we do that. Let's just add that in real quick. I want to put that in because that's going to be helpful when we load it. And that's only for new. So all we need to do in this case is do dot range I and what, and the PO item row dot value equals, what does it equal? And the item row dot value equals, what's it going to equal? It's going to equal the PO item row. Okay, great. So we got that. So now we've got all that set up. But basically what that is, I want row, what is in this case, let's take a look at that. In this case, it's row 3 and row 4. So we want to make sure those 3 and 4 are put in, but that's through VBA. So good. And why is that? Well, let's just take a look at that. All right, good. So let's say we add a row onto this. Let's say we add a new item onto this, and we want to save it. We want that row now to appear here. So now that we added in the code, it works perfect. So now we have in our purchase orders, we have 1 more purchase order number run, everything is set on our purchase order. Okay, good. But what I want to do now is what I want to load it. And the best way to do it, to load it, is I want to take, when we load it, I want to take whatever information is here, I want to bring it back into this purchase order. And then what I want to do is I want to run an advanced filter based on this, and I want to put in criteria here. So that means, let's just say we have tons of purchase order items and tons of different purchase order numbers, but I only want to know which items are for purchase order number 1. We can use an advanced filter for that. And to do that, we need a criteria. So what is that criteria? I'm going to say equals, it's always, our purchase order is always going to be based on this here. So we're going to say equals H2. So the purchase order is going to be here. So then what I want to do is I want to run an advanced filter, load only. In this case, we only have one purchase order. But so when we add more, we can then have our results appear here and bring those items that are in the results just for purchase order number 1, bring those items into here. So let's run that. Let's add some code and call it PO load and create a new macro for that. So we're going to go into sub, and then we'll just call this PO load. We want to load that purchase order. So what are we going to need to do that for that? Well, for that, what I want to do is write some code here, and we're going to dimension again mostly the same things. We have PO row as long, PO item row as long, last. I also want to know again last PO item row as long. Okay, so we have those three: the PO row as long, the PO item row as long, and the last PO item row as long too. So we've got those defined. So let's also, I want to dimension the result row as long. I want to know results. I want to know what result row as long, because we're going to load in those results, and the last item result row as long. Why do I need both of those? Well, because when I run the results here in the purchased item, I want to know what the last results row, in the row. So I want to move through these and bring those over. So that's really important. So we're going to need to know that as we bring them into our purchase order here. So we can do that. Now we're ready to set up. So let's continue on with sheet 1. The first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we have an accurate row. I can't load the purchase order. I can't load it from this unless I know it's row 3. And of course we know that through our formula here. So we need to make sure that B3 is not empty. So the first thing we want to do is write an if-then statement. If .range B3 .value equals empty, then what do I want to do? Well, I want to let the user know, message box, please select a correct PO number, just to let them know that they have the wrong number. Okay, and then exit sub. Nothing we can do, we can't load it unless we have a proper PO row. Okay, but assuming we do, we can then define the PO row is equal to .range B3. And that's going to be the purchase order row, PO row. Okay, so now that we have the PO row, we can load in some information. But before we load in, I want to make sure that we clear all the contents. I want to clear any previous results. So we're going to make sure to clear basically these fields here, all the way from E7 through H9, and also through this range here, making sure not to remove the formulas. Those are important. We're going to add in, actually we can add in our formulas here. The subtotal is equal to sum, while we're at it, sum of all of this. That's our subtotal. Our tax is going to be equal to our subtotal times, in this case 10%, so times 0.1. And of course our total is going to be equal to the sum of both of those, sum of these two. All right, now we have our totals. Our PO is looking very nice. Save what we've done so far, and let's continue on with our code. So basically I want to clear out this information, clear out these two ranges here. So we can do that with the following lines of code. .range E7 through H9. Also, what else do I want to do? D11 through all the way through G24. Through G24. And I just want to clear the contents. Not clearing the field, not clear, but clear the contents, not the formats. Clear contents. Okay, very nice. Clearing the contents. Now it's going to clear PO. Always good to clear before we load in more. Next up, we're ready to load it in. So I want to set the PO load to true. That's important. .range B5 equals true. And of course, that's going to go to false before we get to the end of this macro. So let's just type that in just so we don't forget. Put it down here, false. Set PO load to false. And we want to make sure that we also comment it out so we're knowing what that is. So we're going to comment this and set it to true here, just so we know what we're doing. Okay, next up, we're ready to load in all the details. H3 is going to be the PO date dot range. H3, right? We know the PO date equals, where's it coming from? It's coming from sheet 2, which is our PO2 dot range, and that's located in column B, of course. B and the PO row. And the PO row, we've already defined the PO dot value, and that is our PO date. So let's just take a quick look at that. So we're going to put it in right in H3, and it's going to come from right here in B. Next up, we just need to add in the additional lines of code to add in our information to our purchase order. So we can do that right here. We can just copy and paste and just make a few small changes. So we've added a date in H3. What else do we need? We need in H4, we're going to put in our status, right? We need to know the status, PO status. And our status is going to come from C, column C. And what else do we need? Well, of course, we also need the vendor. That's important. Vendor's going to come from column D, vendor. And we're going to place that. And we're going to place that vendor located in E7. And then what we want to do is I want to put in the information. I want to put in delivery address 1, 2, and 3. And those are going to be in D7, D8, and D9. So we can copy that. And of course, that's going to be E. And that's going to be the delivery address 1. We've got delivery address 2, 3. And that's it. So that's it. That's all the main information for our purchase order. And it's going to come from, let's just bring these over so that everything's nice and straight. Okay, so we got D7, and that would be D8, and then D9. Actually, F, and F. F9. Okay, great. So we've got that covered, and that's going to come from F and G. Let's just double check that so we look at our, make sure delivery address 2 and 3. Let's just take a look at that so we know we're coming. Delivery address F7, F8, and F9 is going to be coming from our columns E, F, and G. That's what we want to go. So we're going to be 7, 8, and 9, and it's going to be coming from E, F, and G. Perfect. Okay, so now we've loaded all of the information for that, but now we have to load in our purchase order items. Remember, now we got to load in. We've just loaded in all of the information up here, the PO, the date, but now I need to load in all the items. I want to bring those in, including the database row. So bring that in, but to do that, we need to run an advanced filter. So the best way to do that is determine the last row, in this case it's 5, run an advanced filter based on this criteria, purchase order 1. Of course, we only have 1 right now. Get those results, determine the last row of those results, bring those all the way into our purchase order. So that's what we're going to do now with the following lines of code. So let's just put in some comments here. Load in PO items. So we can load in those items with, the first thing we need to do is determine the last PO item row. So last PO item row is equal to sheet 3. Remember, our PO purchase orders are located on sheet 3 dot range. We can use A 99999 dot end XLUp dot row and load in those. That's going to be the last item row, because we need to run the advanced filter. So now we're ready to run our advanced filter, but we do want to make sure that there actually are items. Can't run an advanced filter if there are no items. So if last PO item row is less than 3, then go to no items, just in case. And then we'll drop it down here, and then we'll put no items. Okay, good. So we have that just in case there's no. So we can continue with the rest. And also, I just don't want to forget, I want to make sure that we copy and paste this. It's an existing once we load it, so we can paste that in here too. It's an existing purchase order, so we're going to make it false. Once we load it, it's not new no matter what, and the cancel new, so we're going to load that in as well. All right, so let's continue with the items. So we know that there now are items because we've added in the line of code to make sure that there are items. So we can start our advanced filter. So sheet 3, that's the advanced filter, dot range. What are we going to do? We're going to run our advanced filter based on our sheet 3. So that is our purchase items. Sliding over here, it's going to start it in A2 all the way through G. In the last row, we're going to run our advanced filter. Criteria is going to be I2 through I3. The results are going to be in K2 through Q2. So we're going to write that all in one line of an advanced filter. So we can do that. Dot range, so it's going to be starting at A2 through G and the last PO item row dot advanced filter, right? We're going to copy it to a new location. We want to set the criteria range colon equal to what? Sheet 3, as I mentioned to you. Actually, we can go down one line of code to make it a little easier. Sheet 3 dot range, the criteria is I2 and I3, as I mentioned before, I2 through I3. Make sure we include that purchase order number. And what else do we want? We also want to copy the to range. Copy to range. What is the range that we're copying it to? Equal to sheet 3 dot range. We're going to copy it to the range K2 through Q2, K2 through Q2. That's where we want the results to go. And of course we want unique values, comma, unique colon equals, we can do false just in case there's a repeat, false. Okay, that's our advanced filter. Let's just take a quick look at that, make sure we got everything right. Sheet 3, A2, must include the headers through G in the last PO item row. Advanced filter, we're going to copy that. The criteria range is going to be equal to sheet 3, I2 through I3, and copy to K2 through Q2. Now, one thing you want to make absolutely sure is this name, the header PO number, must be exactly to the PO number here. So what I always do is I copy it and I paste the values or paste everything here, making sure that those must match. Criteria must match. Otherwise, you're going to get an error. It's going to say something is wrong with your advanced filter. All right, everything looks good. So we're ready to run. So what I want to do is that's going to get us all of our data here, but I need to determine the last row. And I also need to make sure that there's a check. If the last row is less than 3, that means there's no results. So we can do that with this line of code. The first thing I want to do is determine the last results row. So we can do that here. Last item result row. Let's just check make sure last item result row, that is the one we dimensioned, so that's what I want to put in here, equals, what is it going to be used? K, sheet 3 dot range. We can use K because K is where the results are going to go. K 99999 dot end XLF dot row. So that's the last results row. Last results row. If last item result row is less than 3, then go to no items, because there's no items, right? Okay, so now that we put that caveat in, we can continue on our code because we know the results. We can run a loop. For the results row, we're going to go through each one. Equals, we know it's going to start at 3, and it's going to go to the last one, to the last item result row. Always close our loop, next result row, and we can work within the loop. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I need to know where to place it, right? If we're moving through this list, I need to know where do we place it on our purchase order? What row do we place it in? 11, 12, 13? Well, we know it because that row is kept. We know that row because it's located in Q, right? Q is going to tell, it's located in P. P is going to tell us where it's located. So we can, because we know it there, we can then add that in. We know what row to add in. So the first thing we want to do is define the row, so we can set that to P. So the PO item row in our code, so PO item row is equal to sheet 3 dot range P, right? That's where we're located. Q is the database row. I want the PO item row and the result row dot value. That's our purchase order item row, the row inside our purchase order. That's very important so we know what row to place it, because we're going to use that moving on. Okay, so now we're ready to set it up. So now what I want to do is I basically want to take all the information, item description, quantity, and price, and bring it over into our purchase order here. So D through G equals L through O. That's what we're going to do. So we're going to write that line of code right here. Dot range D and of course the PO item row, and what is it? All the way through G and the PO item row. Dot value equals, again, equals from sheet 3. This time we're focused on the results. Dot range all the way from sheet 3 dot range L and the result row, and colon all the way through O. We'll double check that in a second. O, and we need the colon here. Colon O and result row dot value. Item name, description, quantity, price. All right, let's double check that, make sure we got it right. L through O, L through O, item description, quantity, and price. L through O, bringing it all the way over into here, D through G. Okay, let's just take a look at that. Double check. D through G equals L through O. Perfect. Okay, so now that we have the item row, now we have all that information in there. We just need to add in one more thing, because I need to know, once we bring it in, I would bring it all in, I need to know where it came from, what row database. In case we make an update or a change, I need to know what row to change. So we need to bring in that. Where is it located? Well, that's located in Q. So that's the database row right here. Going to bring that in and put that into I. So we can do that with this one. Dot range I and the PO item row value equals, and then we're just going to say equals sheet 3 dot range, and that would be Q and the results row dot value, and that would be the database item database row. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, I think we're good. We can clean this up. Let's save our work as always. Let's take a look. And then what I want to do is when do I want to run this macro? I want to run that macro when user makes any change to H2. So we can do that in the code. That would be the on-sheet code. Remember, we spoke of that just preview. Okay, so we can do that H2. If not, intersection H2, if the user makes any change to H2, we also want to make sure it's not empty too. And we also want to make sure that there's nothing. Then what do I want to do? I want to check something first. I want to make sure that B3, make sure there's a row, right? If they put in some crazy number, it's going to cause an error. If they put in some crazy number, this is going to be blank. So we want to make sure that B3 is not blank, so we can run a check. If range B3 dot value does not equal empty, then we can run, then we can paste in a row, then load PO. Okay, great. So we have actually the code that's going to actually load that PO. We just wrote that code, so we can save it. And let's just see, there might be some errors in this. So we're going to double click on here and enter it. Oh, no errors. Okay, double click. Good. All right, so it loaded it up, but we only have one purchase order, so you couldn't really see the change. But everything looks right. Everything looks good. What I want to do now is I want to add a macro that says add new. So that's just going to clear it all out, basically clear these fields, clear all these fields here, and get it ready to add a new one. And of course, bring over our next PO, of course, now too. I want to bring that up here, maybe put a date here, the current date, and put a default status. So let's write that macro now. That would be for new. So we're going to go into our PO macros, and we can actually write it here, sub PO add new. Okay. So what do we want to do for that? Well, in this case, what I want to do is just, first of all, set our PO load to true just in case so nothing else happens. So with sheet 1, and then the first thing, dot range B4. Thanks for sticking with me on these really long trainings, but you seem to love them. The views are skyrocketing, so I'm going to continue with these from scratch, even though they're long, but you guys seem to love them, so no worries, love to do them. Set the new PO to true. Right? I want to make sure we set new purchase order to true because it's going to be a new purchase. And I want to clear out certain fields. .range. What fields do I want to clear out? Just the same ones that I mentioned before. E7 through H9. That's the top header section. And then all of the items. In that case, it's D11 through G24. And I'll go over that with you. 24. Dot clear contents. Just those two ranges. Clear PO fields. Right? You know, we understand that the ranges are these two ranges. Here, all the way E7 through H9. And here, not the formula, starting at D through G and all the way down to 24. So that's what we're going to do. D11 through G24 and E7 through H9. That's going to clear the PO fields. Next up, I want to get it ready for a new PO. We got to do something with the buttons, these buttons, where we're going to reverse it. What do I want to do with those buttons? I want to actually display the cancel new. This would be C true. And then since they're creating a new one, the add new is no longer visible, false. So that's important. I want to show and hide those buttons accordingly. And then we're just going to add in some defaults now. So I want to put in the next PO button, .range. H2 is our purchase order number cell, equals, we know the next one's located in B6, .range B6. That's our next PO number. So now that we have that, I also want to set the date, .range. We can just set it to now. H3 is where our purchase order date's going to go, equal to now. PO date, I guess, and time. If you want to format it for time too, we can do that. Also, what I want to do is H4. I'm going to set the default to open. .range. H4 is our status. We're going to set that to open. Equals open. And you can customize this yourself to add in multiple statuses if you want. Set PO status. We're just doing the minimum, obviously, because we're already well over an hour here. So, all right. So we've got the buttons. We've got this thing set up. I think this looks good. Let's just clean this up a little bit. Save our work. Always a good idea, especially before we run. You know, if you mess up, like if I mess up one of these things, all of our data is going to be cleared. Always, especially when you're running macros that clear contents, always, always, always save before you run this code. Because if I mess up one letter or one row, everything, all of our work gets cleared out. And there's no undo when we run VBA. So use that. I've made that mistake many times. So make sure you save before, especially clear contents. Okay. All right. So we're going to add new. That's the macro we just created. So we're going to assign the macro and it's going to add new and click OK. Again, save. And then we're going to run this macro. It looks good. The PO number, next one. Current date, status is open. Our vendor's cleared out. Our delivery address looks very, very good. Okay, so let's add in a vendor now. Our address automates. Our delivery address, we can just put in Fredder's. You know, you may want to, if this is your company address, you may want to automatically copy this here. You can also have delivery address. You can have another table with delivery addresses and you can set up delivery addresses. So many things you can do with this, really. So I just want to put the minimum in. We can add in some items. This is going to be PO number 2. Now we've got load and save. We put in the same item there. Let's choose a different item. And it puts the default quantity in. Good, our database rows. Actually, we need to clear this out. This should have been cleared out too. We got to clear out I. We can't, on a new purchase order, we can't have these old ones. So let's include I11 all the way through I24 in our clear because that's important. So, comma I11 through I24, right? Because we want to make sure that we clear it out because this is brand new. So clearing those out, so good. We got that covered now. And let's save and update. It's going to add new rows. Perfect. Add new. Make sure. Okay, good. Now these are cleared out. We want those cleared out. These are formulas. We don't want to touch that. Great. So let's take a look at our purchase items. Nice. We have that. So now we have items for 1 and items for 2. Great. Now let's just double check our load. I want to change this to 2. It's going to load. Perfect. 1. It's going to load. Okay, good. So now we got loading. Now we got saving. We got adding new. Great. All we need to do is just add a few more, and then I'm going to show you how to generate this, which is a really great feature. Let's just add in the print right now so we can do. That's a really easy one. So let's go ahead and add that in now. Back into module we go. PO macros. We're going to focus just add in a few more here macros because I want to print and I want to also cancel new. So let's do the cancel new sub PO cancel new. This is just a few lines of code. I want to make sure basically what I want to do is the idea is when they click cancel new, when they click add new, I want to add a macro to this that cancels it and just loads, assuming that there's a value here. I'm just going to load the first one here, but I want to make sure if there's no purchase orders at all, no saved purchase orders, we cannot cancel the new. The only thing they can do is add a new one. They can't go to any old one. So we're just going to check is if A3 is not blank, then just take whatever's in A3 and place it right here. So we can just do that with just a really 2 lines of code. Okay, if sheet2.range A3.value does not equal empty, then sheet1.range H2.value equals, actually just 1 line of code, sheet2.range A3.value. That's it. Okay, so that's it. So that's all we want to do in cancel new, and automatically it's going to take that. So when we right click, actually I'm going to right click the group itself, assign the macro, sub, cancel new, click OK. So now when we cancel new, it's just going to revert back. Add new, cancel new, add new, cancel new. See how nice that works? Okay, one more. I want to print it. That's again just 1 line of code here. So one more macro, and then we're going to run the really cool macro that's automatically going to generate. So you got to stay for that one. Generate purchase orders automatically. Whatever items are needed, it's going to generate. PO print. Okay, so with this one, all we're going to be doing is sheet1.print out. What are we going to be printing out? Well, I want to be from sheet to sheet, just all the copies, preview, active printer. Let's just set that to true. And then what I want to collate, no, print a file name, ignore print areas, false. I want to keep the print areas. Okay, so PO print, we've written that. Let's go ahead and assign that to our button here. And then that one button looks a little bit larger. Assign macro print. Okay, let me just check the format of that. Okay, it looks good. Now let's click the print. My default printer is Snagit, so it's going to print out. Let's take a look at, oh, that looks very nice. It's a very nice looking purchase order that we have here generated. Great, so we've got the cancel new, we've got the print. And now all we have to do is I want to click this, and what do I want to do? When I click generate purchase order, I want to automatically load whatever items are needed by this vendor. This vendor is required. So for example, if we click add new, and then I select a specific vendor, I want to load all of the items that are running low on stock from this vendor. Now, if we look in our items, we have specific vendors that have been assigned. So Acme shirt's been assigned. We also have the minimum stock level. So if our quantity on hand, we're going to write that formula now. Well, basically it's going to be all the items purchased minus the items sold. So how do we know that? Well, let's take a look. The first thing we want to do is we want to understand all the items purchased based on the name, and of course all the items sold based on the name, item name. So we need to know that. So let's just copy the item's name in here into the items purchased, just so we have some of the sold items here under the, I want to make sure we got the same names in here. Okay, so now we've got the same names, just so we know some of our fake data here. Okay, so we've got the items. So let's write just some name ranges for both the purchase names and the sold name, just so we can do that. So formulas, name manager, and what do I want to do? I want to add a new, and what is it going to be based on? Let's just call this purchase item name. All right, purchase item. What is that going to be equal? It's going to be equal to this right here. We're going to use offset named range again. So offset, and then of course we're going to copy this because I want to know all the purchases by name. Copy that, starting in B2, comma 1, comma, count A, paste that in, and then we'll use a high number 9999 minus 1, comma 1. Okay, let's tab out. Okay, so we know all the items that are purchased by name. And then I want to know all the items sold by name. So again, we're going to do a new, and this is going to be called sold item name. And this one's going to be over in our sold items. So in this case, what I want to know is all the item names that are sold. So we're just going to do the same thing, adding an offset. And then we're going to copy this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add again, comma 1, comma, count A, 9999 minus 1, comma 1. Okay, let's tab out. tab back in. Perfect. That's what I want to do. Okay, so we now have sold item name and purchase item name. Click OK and close that. Great. So let's look back into our items. So now what I want to do, let's write a formula. And it basically, again, like I said, is the quantity purchased minus the quantity sold. So the first thing we want to do is determine the quantity purchased equals sum if, what is the range? Of course, the range is going to be our purchase, right? Purchase item name. And the criteria is going to be this item right here. And what was the sum? It's going to be our items purchased. That's what I want to know, items purchased. Okay, and let's just close that out. Okay, right now it's 0, but let's just change the name of one of those just so we can see it. Purchased items, let's just paste that name right in here. And now it's going to show 24. So back into the items. So now we got quantity on hand is 24. Okay, so but that's only half of it. It's going to be minus the total sold, right? So minus, again, sum if, in this case, it's going to be sold items based on this name right here, A3, comma, and then items sold, right? I want to know the total items sold. So that's our formula, minus 11. Why is that? Well, of course, we've purchased, let's say we purchased 24 of the ladies' t-shirts. And how many did we sell? Well, we sold 10 here. I've sold 25 here. So we've actually sold a total of 35. And we've purchased only 24, so that's just right. So we have negative 11. Normally that won't happen, but you get the point. The formula is working perfect. So all I'm going to do is just going to copy down this formula here. They're all negatives, but that's fine because I want to order a lot. So we know they're all going to go below the minimum stock level if we have negative. Obviously, the more we purchase, if we change those purchase items, those will change, but that's fine. It's working just good. So what I want to do is I want to run an advanced filter based on the vendor chosen. Well, what is that vendor? It's going to be basically equal to, what is that? The vendor located right here in E7. E7. That's what our vendor is going to be located. So I want to put, so the vendor is going to automatically go here. This is going to be, so we're going to run an advanced filter. I want to know all of the items for this vendor, and I want to put those results right here. Once the results are in, I want to know the quantity on hand. If the quantity on hand is less than the minimum stock level, then we need to order the part, right? So let's just write some code to do that. That's going to generate purchase orders automatically. So let's write some code. So we can drop down here, and then we're going to call this sub PO generate. All right, so that's going to generate our PO. So what do we do? The first item, this is not a large macro. We're going to be done very soon. So dimension the last item row as long. I need to know the last item row because we're going to run through all the items. The last result row as long. Of course, the PO row as long. And the results row as long. Okay, so with sheet 1, we're still focused on sheet 1. Let me bring that up a little bit for you. And so the first thing I want to do is I want to clear all the existing rows. If we're going to bring in new, we want to make sure we clear all the existing. So we can do that. Just going to clear any, this information can stay the same, but I want to clear all the way D11 through G24. So we can do that here. Dot range D11 through G24. Clearing all the clear existing items. Clear existing. I also want to make sure that E7 is not empty. We cannot generate a purchase order if we don't have a vendor. I need to know what vendor we're going to be purchasing. So we want to make sure that E7 is not empty. So we need to run some code to make sure that is. If dot range E7 dot value equals empty, then message box, please select a vendor before generating a PO. Okay, exit sub. Okay, so we have that. Now we can continue on knowing that there is a vendor. So now what I want to do is I want to determine the last item row. Again, like I mentioned before, we got to run an advanced filter based on all these items. So I need to know the last item row. In this case, it's 15, but we can use column A for that. Just get the last item row. So let's do that right now. The last item row is equal to sheet 5. Of course, that is our items. Dot range A999 dot end XLUp dot row. Okay, so we're gonna, that's our last item row. And then what I want to do is I'm ready to run our advanced filter based on sheet 5, just what I had told you. Sheet 5, of course, range A2, of course, is going to start. It's going to go all the way through G and the last item row. Dot advanced filter. We're going to run an advanced filter. And we'll, of course, we want to copy that. Criteria range colon equals sheet 5 dot range I2 through I3, I2 through I3, I2 through I3. Okay, that is our criteria. And then we'll copy to, and then let's go with lower line, copy to range. What range do we want to copy that to? Colon equals sheet 5 dot range. I want to copy that to range all the way through L2 through R2, L2 through R2. We'll double check that in a second. Okay, and then unique, we'll just go equals false again. Okay, let's just double check that. So, of course, our criteria is I2 through I3, and our results are going to go L2 through R2, both on sheet 5. That's our item sheet. So that's going to run our advanced filter. Okay, so now what we want to do is I want to determine the results row. The last result row is going to be equal to sheet 5 dot range, and we can use L. L is our first column. L 999 dot end XLUP dot row. Okay, so that's our last result row. I want to run a check if the last result row is less than 3. Then go to no items. No items, just in case there's no items. We can't bring anything over if there's actually no items. Okay, so assuming that we do have the row, we can then determine the PO row. What is the PO row? Again, PO row is equal to 11. That's our starting row. We need to set that. PO row is equal to 11. That's our starting row. Starting row, right? If we're going to be moving down, right, we want to generate, I need to know the starting row. We're going to add in items across here, but we're going to run a check. So this is our first row that we're going to start it on. So we know the first row, but now we need to check. We're going to run our loop for the result rows equal to 3 to the last result row. And what is that? Let's just take a quick look at our items, right? We have our vendor, we've completed our advanced filter here in the item. So we're going to start it out in 3 and go all the way to our last results row. And what I want to do, I want to check every row. If the quantity on hand is less than the minimum stock level, then take the item description, sales price, the item name, item description, purchase order, and sales price, bring that over into the purchase order. Item description, quantity price, bring it all over. So we can do that with the following lines of code. Let's just make sure we close our loop. Next result row. If sheet 5 dot range, what does that equal? Q and result row dot value is less than sheet 5 dot range R and the result row dot value, then add item to PO. Great. And if close our if. Okay, so if it's equal, if it's less than, again, if Q is less than R, let's just take one quick look at that one more time just so we can go. If Q is less than R, Q less than R, then bring it over. Okay, so we can do that. So we can do that with just one line of code. Dot range D dot range, because we're on sheet 1, and what? The PO row and G colon G and the PO row dot value is equal to what? Equal to going to be sheet 5, bring in all that item description, quantity, price, sheet 5, L, and of course in this case it's the results row, and of course colon and all the way through O, and the result row dot value, item description, quantity, price. Okay, so item description, quantity, and price. Brought that all over. Okay, so that's going to bring it all over there. And then one more thing we need to do that's really important, right? We've just brought it over into the purchase order, but I need to get ready for the next item. So we brought it over to 11, so I need to increase the PO row by 1. So we can do that with this line of code. Oh, let's fix that. Equals, got to have the equals there. Range. Okay. All right, so now what we have is PO row equals PO row plus 1, add 1. Also, I want to make sure that we don't go over. Obviously, we cannot go beyond 24. So if we're at this point, if we're at 25, then we've gone too far. We have to exit out of it. If PO row equals 25, then exit 4, right? We can't get out of that. We can't continue on if we have more rows. Can't go beyond that point. All right, of course, in your purchase order, you can customize that yourself. Okay, so let's take a look at that. That looks pretty good. Let's, of course, save what we've been doing. And that looks pretty good. We'll take a look. Maybe if there's any issues, we'll fix them as we said. Right-click the generate, assign macro, click generate. Okay, I want to make sure that this is working. I'm going to clear out this and make sure that we can't generate a purchase order if we don't. Okay, let's make sure D2.clear contents, obviously not value, clear contents. Okay. And then let's run it. This should be good. Please select a vendor before generating. That's exactly what I want. We can't we can't generate unless we have a vendor. Just wanted to make sure. Okay, now that we have a vendor, click generate. Oh, that looks just perfect. Very, very nice. We got to add in formulas down here. Let's continue with that formula. Okay, good. So that's right. There's no database row because it hasn't been saved yet, but as soon as we save it, it's going to add a database. So it generated. Let's just perfect. That looks really good. Save and update. Boom. Now it worked. We generated a purchase order. Let me show that to you again. Add new. And let's just choose a different vendor, Freddy's. Let's see if it generates a different PO, different items based on that vendor. Well, that's working really great. Let's double check this before we finish up. We've got the purchase order number because if there's any errors, I want to make sure that we've covered them before we leave this training. We can define, you can set this as a time or date depending upon what you want, time or date. You can format this PO list based on just the date. We don't need that, so we go into home, make that a short date. But in case we want to show the full date, we can. Status is open. That looks good. Vendor is set up on the purchase orders. Let's save a different vendor. Make sure that works good. We didn't add any delivery address in these purchase orders, so there's nothing going to be saved there. That looks fine. That's fine. If I update it, I want to make sure to do that. So if we update it and click Save or Update, and then we go back into the PO list, that update saves. So it's good. It saves if we update it. We have a list of vendors. We've got items. We've got purchase order. Great. We've done a lot of training here, and add new, cancel new. Everything looks great. Thanks for sticking with me on this extra long training. Of course, if you'd like to support us, I do appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe. And if you want 100 of these workbooks, click the links below. Look down for 100 workbooks. It's just $37. So I hope you go ahead and pick that up. Thanks so much and have a great week. And we'll see you next week.